Oh god, is it morning already? Oh god, how long... Is Reina still standing outside the window? I feel like that should be something that we check. Anyway, hey there guys, my name is Nix and welcome back to Higurashi, When They Cry, Chapter 1. Onikakushi. Last time, we had quite the encounter with Reina, didn't we? I know when I uploaded that part and everyone else was like, ah yes, we've reached that scene. And I was just like, oh, this is the infamous one, isn't it? Although I can't help but feel bad about trapping her fingers in the doors, but at the same time, girl did try to break in and also tried to feed me a needle at one point. Anyway, before we go on here, you know the drill at this point. We gotta go back and read some tips. And oh boy, are they something. Okay, real talk, at this point, I can't remember if I actually had any tips. I did. I got an old TV and somewhere at... Oh no, now I remember what this might be. Yeah, I remember what this might be, and that doesn't fill me with any form of confidence. Anyway, split personality? Many question marks?
I see it in movies quite often, but what is it exactly?
Multiple personalities are thought to be escapism.
Multiple personality disorder is a form of escapism?
Correct. The exact mechanism is not fully understood, but it's believed to be a type of defense for the brain to retain mental stability.
Hypothetically, poor people imagine themselves as wealthy as a form of escapism, is it not? Is this also a form of multiple personality disorder?
That's not how it works. I wouldn't go that far, but broadly speaking, one could infer that. It's something that occurs in us all.
Does a split personality occur when one cannot tell which is real and which is the escape?
That's a far more serious issue, I feel. That's difficult to say. There are some who agree with that and some who disagree. There's no consensus.
And is the occurrence of multiple personalities still an unknown phenomenon? Something not fully comprehended in the psychiatric field?
Unfortunately, that's the current state of things. We can only put our hope in future research.
But, it's sort of cool to have a split personality. What kind of people get split personalities?
Well, given that it's a form of escapism, you know, I'll let you fill in the rest. Recent studies find those who develop it, or rather those who are susceptible to developing it, may be genetically predisposed or may have some abnormal mental development. Some say that childhood abuse increases the chances.
Speaking of which, Person A here experienced abuse as a child, didn't he? How sad. Person A had 7 different personalities.
Holy shit! I didn't realize you could go that far.
Let's watch a video of him. Right after these commercials.
Oh, for fuck's sake. Really gonna do me like that? No, okay, we're not even gonna get a fucking glimpse. God damn it. I feel like that could have been important. Does Reina have a split personality? I wouldn't know if I'd go that far. Anyway, here's me buying noodles while Reina stalks me from the distance. The 7th mart was a bargain supermarket with food and alcohol.
What's this, Keiichi? So many! There's no reason to get all the different kinds, is there?
I flopped all the different coloured cup noodles into the cart. Cup noodles have gotten so elaborate recently, and there are a bunch of different types. I want to try each one of them at least once. I knew it was pretty selfish of me, but I thought I'd at least give it a try. Keiichi. Buy them in the big case, it's cheaper. Dad faltered. Well, I had a feeling it'd end up like this. Now that Dad had thrown his hat into the ring, I had to compromise. I'll only get one of each. I'll only get to eat one kind. I'd get bored with that. I was resisting as a formality. I had already given up inside. I wasn't sure which noodles to get.
If you can't pick, then Mommy will pick for you.
You don't have to rush me. I quickly search the cases of noodles for what I want.
Pork bone and ginger. Large cup. Hey, Keiichi, can't you get a more normal one?
I let Mom pick, she'd err on the side of safety and get soy sauce or salt flavored. So when I plonked a large box of pork bone flavored... Pork bone flavor doesn't sound like it should be a real thing. Like, is it pork flavored or is it... I don't even know what bone flavored tastes like, so never mind. When I plonked a large box of pork bone flavor into the shopping cart, Mom looked back at me with the expression as if to say, "These ones?" To show her this was my last compromise, I began explaining the choice. Pork bone's good! You get a large serving, but the flavor isn't too strong. I remember insisting that the noodles I picked were the right kind. In this frozen memory in time, this encapsulated world, I didn't have the power to look around my surroundings. So I did what I could and reached out with my hearing and vision, sharpening my senses to find the presence I overlooked. No matter how much I searched through my field of vision, I couldn't see Reina. I rewound the situation, searching, but of course I couldn't find her. Then, she was spying at me from my blind spot? I go through the sound and presences again, looking. I could sense the other customers. They were all mixed about, moving as they please. There was nobody looking over this way and no one trying to get behind me. Not here. Couldn't be here. Probably wasn't here. I definitely noticed if someone was right behind me, even when I wasn't on my guard. I smiled wryly at the thought of using a vague word like probably, right before contradicting it with definitely. Then I paused my mental replay as a chill ran down my spine. Can we, I feel like that's at least the third violinist that's died during this Let's Play. Can we start keeping a track? Violinists need good insurance. That's all I'm starting to think at this point. There was definitely a presence like a shadow behind me. That was a terror unlike any other. If a presence really had manifested behind me, I would definitely have turned around to check for it. But the world had moved on, and there was no way for me to turn around. While carrying that frightening shadow on my back, I was gleefully running around the store searching for a case of noodles. Running through the instant noodles section, bad-mouthing my mom. But there was that presence constantly at my back, sticking to me like a shadow. No way to see what it was. Realizing now after the fact was horrifying and repulsive. In that moment of time, I was running around gleefully, carrying the cardboard box. Tip-tap. But listening to that moment again, I could hear footsteps under the mine going pit-pat with every step. Tip-tap, tip-tap, tip-tap. Yeah, we get the gist. Almost perfectly mimicking me. While I was running, the sound of those barefoot footsteps going pit-pat were right behind mine. Me running around gleefully in that closed-off moment in time. But I didn't hear it. No, I had heard it. That's why I remembered it. I didn't think that I'd heard anything. That's why I didn't turn around. That was why I didn't turn around. In that moment, the pit-pat of those footsteps were following me the entire time. I couldn't run faster and escape. I couldn't run any faster if I had ran at that time. I couldn't turn around. I hadn't turned around before. Not once. Then I returned to my parents and started talking. The shadow-like presence was right at my back. Since I didn't move, the shadow didn't move. That's why it made no sound. That was all. At that time, I hadn't taken a single step while talking to my parents. I was just standing there, This was undeniable. And yet, I heard it. A pit-pat that shouldn't be. If I took 3 steps, it followed 3 steps. Wasn't that the rule? There was no sound other than that. At that time, the entire world had gone dark. A sudden darkness. It was the end of my reflective journey. I was tired. I wanted to end it. Someone turn on the light. Except my body couldn't move. As if I was sewn into that moment in time. Pit-pat. My past self-hair stood on end. That's impossible. Now that's just breaking the rules. I hadn't moved. So you shouldn't be moving either. I couldn't move. So you shouldn't be able to move either. Follow the rules. Pit-pat. Yet that sound echoed in the darkness once again. The hair on the back of my neck pricked up on end. It was so close that it was hard to tell whether it was touching the hair or not. Why couldn't I move? Like how the presence was moving behind me. I quickly realized I could move. It's just that I was scared and didn't want to. But now was the only time I could turn around. There was something unforgivable in that moment of time. But I needed to turn around immediately. As if my entire being was trying to force me to stop. It began to administer a pain like a needle being stuck into my every pore. I'll turn around. I'll turn around. I'm not scared at all. I'll turn around. I'll turn around. I'm not scared at all. A scream I was unable to vocalize. I turned around. At first, I couldn't understand the meaning of it. What? What is this? Just as a person's mouth might bite into an apple, slurp the juices, and finally discover that it was an apple, my mind began to process the scent before my eyes by eating the apple. Munch, munch, chew, chew. Snuffle, slurp. I don't like the phrase, slurp the juices. That just makes me feel all kinds of uncomfortable. But yes, slurp the juices and discover the apple. Meaning, what was in front of me was... That's the 4th violinist that we've just killed off. Detective Onikakushi. I just got an achievement. So whether that's the last of the tips or what, I don't know. In fact, I can check. Yeah, so that was the last of the tips according to the achievement I just got. So I don't know how much further we've actually got with this, but we shall find out, won't we? So yeah, apparently I'm done with all the tips. So I don't actually know how much of chapter 1 there is left. Who knows, we might even finish it this episode. I wish I could plan this, but unfortunately, that's just the nature of doing a blind Let's Play. Anyway, I guess I'd be lying if I said I didn't get any sleep. I tried to stay awake all night, but there were definitely gaps in my memory. I guess I kept nodding off and jerking awake in a panic all night. I spent all night hugging the metal bat and sat on top of the futon I used to barricade my door. Waiting. Watching just in case someone tried to break through my window. If I left this spot, someone would break through the door, sending the futon flying and attack me. But if I stopped watching the window, someone would break through the glass and attack me. I tried telling myself I was just being paranoid, but I couldn't sleep. Thought of being so vulnerable scared the living daylights out of me. If sleep meant taking that risk, I didn't need it. It was so much better just to stay awake. At some point during that endless cycle of nodding off and jolting awake, light began to shine outside, but that was it. It wasn't so much the morning as it was just the sun simply having risen. I snuck a peek out through the curtains. Reina was gone. I couldn't see her anywhere, no matter how hard I looked. Finally, I could breathe a deep sigh of relief. The night was finally over. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't tired, but I didn't feel like sleeping at the moment. I still had time, but I need to make my own breakfast, so I better get started soon. Skipping school was also an option. With my mom gone, it'd be easy to play hooky. Honestly, I debated it. The risk involved in leaving my house was incalculable. So staying holed up in here was probably my safest option. But staying here wouldn't solve anything. Oishi-san wouldn't help me without cold, hard evidence. Neither he, nor my parents. So unless I found some sort of proof, these relentless nights would never end. I stretched my body, tilted my head back, and closed my eyes just like I did every morning. I regulated my breathing and regained my senses. Calm down, Keiichi Maibara. Let's go to school. Let's wait until they set their trap for me. But that didn't mean I was just going to twiddle my thumbs. I needed to avoid that trap and secure irrefutable evidence. Take note of the places of any car that drives by. I guess it said plates, but you know what, shush. If I see someone suspicious, check their clothes and face. I wasn't just protecting myself. I was preparing myself for their attack against them and retaliate. The tension was similar to when two samurai were both aiming to slay each other with a single motion as they drew their katanas. I was not at a disadvantage. I would have a chance to retaliate. I finally felt a bit of courage growing in my chest. All right, let's go to school. I tightened my grip on Satoshi's bat. He was the only partner I could count on. Satoshi, please lend me your strength. And entrust your dying regrets to me, since you were probably murdered. I'll make sure I dispel them. With renewed resolve, I checked the clock. It was still early. Of course, I was going to school by myself today. If I didn't want to run into Reina or Mion, I need to leave now. The shattered fragments of the cupboard were still strewn all over the entryway. Right. I meant to clean that up last night, but never got around to it with the phone call and everything. If my parents came back and saw this while I was at school, I'd never hear the end of it. Still, I'd be wasting time if I cleaned it up right now. And considering what would happen if I ran into Reina or Mion, it wouldn't be too late to clean it up after I got back home. Making extra certain that the doors were locked, I left the house. My uniform was still covered in mud from yesterday, so I left it in the washer. Today I was going to school in a tracksuit. By wearing a different outfit this morning, my mind was forced to accept that today was different from yesterday. I had a hunch. Today might be the day I got killed. Keep your guard up, Keiichi Maibara. The only one who gets to decide if today is my last is me. Okay, nothing so far. Oh, cool. Well, I got to school and wasn't murdered. I spent the morning practicing my swing like it was my natural routine. And after a while, Reina arrived at school. Our eyes met, but we said nothing. Reina said nothing about last night, as if it never happened. But I could see that those events were real by the wounds carved into her fingers. I just heard her telling Satoko and the others that the bandages were from hurting herself in the kitchen. Though it wasn't like it bothered me. The details that Oishi-san shared about Reina's incident before her transfer played vividly in my mind. Now that I knew about it, I couldn't even dream of Reina as a cute, ideal girl.
Kei-chan, I see you're still aiming for the nationals.
It was Mion. I had already sensed her approach, so I wasn't that surprised.
Mion ka.
Oh, Mion. If you understand, then leave me alone. I'm busy practicing. I gave her a curt reply without my usual jokes. Then I gave the bat an even larger swing, tactically keeping Mion from getting any closer.
Hey, Kei-chan, take it easy.
I think Mion got the message, but she still urged me to give it a rest. Homeroom's not that far off, is it? Just let me finish practicing. I swung the bat even harder as a sign of my refusal.
Kei-chan, when did you get into baseball?
Just recently.
Recently? You mean yesterday?
Don't ask as if you already know.
Oh dear. That's a very unsportsmanlike reply.
You're distracting me. Go away. I ignored Mion and kept swinging. Normally she'd get mad or bored and leave if someone gave her the cold shoulder like this. But Mion just stood there, waiting patiently for me to stop swinging. I didn't sense any hostility. But we were at school in plain view. I doubt she'd suddenly attack me here. Or was that too naive? Still, I was starting to get tired. Maybe it wouldn't be so bad to take a break and hear her out. You need me for something, right? What is it? Sweat poured from me as I stopped swinging. I noticed my shoulders were heaving as I breathed. I cursed my lack of exercise. At this rate, I might not be able to move as needed when the time came. I should probably keep practicing my swings to build stamina in addition to the excuse for carrying the bat around with me.
Well, it's nothing important. If you're tired, I can ask again later.
Now it's fine. I'm only dealing with you right now because I judge the situation to be safe. Talking to you alone, away from the others? That's out of the question.
Well...
Mion was uncharacteristically trying to choose her words. But unlike Oishi-san, it didn't look like she was going to talk about something I'd rather not hear. Mion was puzzled, trying to find the right thing to say. But then she gave out a hearty laugh as if to break herself out of the mire.
This old man's just not good at this stuff. Having a poor vocabulary hurts.
What's this all of a sudden? You have something to say, then just say it.
Stop it. Stop that swinging.
She cut straight to the point. Her request was so frank, I didn't understand it for a moment. I had already stopped swinging to listen to her, hadn't I? I just stopped, didn't I?
That's not what I meant. I want today to be the last day you swing that bat. I'm sorry.
It took me some time to understand what she was asking for. What's wrong with swinging a bat? Why? It's none of your business, is it? I'm not bothering anyone, am I?
You are.
Mion said it flat out. This didn't make any sense of it, and it was really irritating. When did I bother anybody? Mion was at a loss for words, but she finally made up her mind and spoke. Though she stuttered as she said it.
Because Kei-chan, that's someone else's bat. You shouldn't borrow it without permission.
It was left behind by a student who transferred, right? I'm just borrowing it until he comes back for it.
Huh? Yeah, he transferred.
Mion grew uncharacteristically flustered. That made it all too clear that his transfer was a lie. But strange, isn't it? For the older brother to transfer by himself, while his little sister stayed behind? Mion couldn't hide her reaction as my words shook her up.
Kei-chan, you knew?
知ってたの？
Satoshi Hoju. Satoko's older brother, right? The one demoned away last year. Unable to respond to that, Mion fell silent. Reina asked the same thing. Why did I start swinging this bat? She told me that Satoshi did the same thing, practicing his swings, right before he went missing. So, is this some kind of omen from Oyashiro-sama's curse? Don't you shush me, Mion. You've been quiet about the whole goddamn thing. Mion panicked and looked around.
頼むよ、ケイちゃん。
Please, Kei-chan, don't mention Oyashiro-sama so recklessly.
I'm confused because she genuinely looks concerned. I haven't seen this expression on Mion, and yet I don't know what the hell's going on with this Oyashiro-sama stuff.
I
don't believe in him, but the others very much do. Reina especially.
Dangerously so?
Anyway, you're scaring everyone. If you're just fooling around, then stop it. You have to stop acting like Satoshi.
I was the one who was scared. Who did I have to thank for taking up this bat in the first place? But it still unsettled me knowing that it was my actions were overlapping with Satoshi's. It'd be one thing if someone suggested it, but I thought I was making my own decisions. I'll say this now. I don't know anything about Satoshi. After all, you didn't tell me anything about him.
We didn't mean to hide it.
You were hiding the incidents that happen every year, weren't you?
That's because we didn't want to.
You didn't want to scare me? That's your reason for leaving me out?
No, we didn't mean to.
Mion, I asked you directly if something happened at the dam, didn't I? And you told me that nothing happened. When someone was dismembered and murdered! You lied to me!
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to lie to you.
Friends don't hide things from each other, right? Isn't that right? Then you all aren't my friends!
Kei-chan, we...
Mion looked helpless and flustered. Was I imagining the tears in her eyes? Never could have imagined Mion acting like this. Oh, by the way, those get well mochi you bought me the other day? They were good. I thought I was going to bleed. Who did it? You? Or Reina?
Me.
She admitted it so easily. I couldn't help but be surprised how easy that was. She could have killed me! How could you do that to a friend?
But it was just a little prank.
It's just a prank, bro. You could have killed me, Mion. Mion gave me a wry smile mixed with confusion, causing even more anger to well up inside me. You think that was a prank? I grabbed Mion by the collar and lifted her up. That wasn't the same as putting Tabasco sauce in a piece of mochi. It was a needle! A sewing needle! If I'd swallowed that and it lodged in my throat, what did she think would happen? Mion's face froze as her body rattled in fear. This wasn't the Mion Sonozaki I knew anymore. Anyways, you're not my friend. There's no reason for me to listen to someone who's not my friend. So just leave me alone for a while. Got it? Mion wasn't replying anymore. It won't be that easy to erase me, you know. The cops have been onto you from the start. So don't think you can make me disappear like you did Satoshi. I said it clearly. This was my declaration of war. I think you guys are suspects in the previous incidents too. I also know you've spent a lot of time with the cops since that anti-dam movement. Don't think you can hide it from me. Got that?
did you know?
とまで
Mion stood there with a dumbstruck look on her face. That was when I heard the principal ringing for the bell for school. It was time for the morning homeroom.
行こうぜ。
Let's go.
委員長がいないとまずい。
Class representative needs to be there, right?
あ
Huh? At that moment, for the first time, I realized Mion was sobbing as tears ran down her cheeks.
You,
ひどいよケイちゃん
you're so mean, Kei-chan.
み
I wanted to console her, but I shut my mouth. I had no need to feel guilty.
俺、行くぜ。
I'm going.
ホームルーム遅れる
Don't be late for homeroom. I left Mion still shaking as I turned around to head for the entrance. I had no idea how troubling it was to make a girl cry. Behind my back I could hear muttering. It was a faint mutter as she was speaking to herself.
そっか
Oh god, no.
So that's how it is.
え
Huh? She wasn't saying it to anyone. It was Mion talking to herself. But it was a sobbing voice that had a kind of giddy, cursing tone. I inadvertently stopped and turned around back toward her.
ケイちゃんに全部バラした
So
の
it was that bastard.
あの野
He
郎
leaked
か
it all to Kei-chan.
I hate this. I don't know what the hell is going on, but I think Mion's finally fallen into, like, true despair. What the fuck is this? She balled up her fists as her tears continued to rain down. She glared at a spot in the ground with a terrifying, yet smiling face, cursing. A chill ran down my spine from that demonic expression. This transformation, Mion's transformation, was different from Reina's.
あの時
I should have killed him
殺
back
しとくん
then.
だったなことして定
He
年だから
forgot the mercy I showed him just
容赦してやっ
just
た
because he
恩を
was going to
忘れやが
retire
って
this year.
Retiring this year. Was she talking about Oishi-san?
ちくしょう
Damn it. Damn it.
ちくしょう
I'm going to kill.
絶対に殺して
Damn old man.
It felt like the air itself had begun distorting. With Mion at the center, the world had begun to twist and spiral. Bending. Whirling. This was the first time I'd experienced such a visage.
Rise. Attention.
Mion made an excuse for her red eyes by saying there was something wrong with her contacts. She wears contacts? And after that, neither Reina nor Mion spoke to me for the rest of the day. Neither Satoko nor Rika-chan looked me in the eye. Strangely, I didn't feel hurt. Everything had just went back to the way it was. The moment since I transferred in, it had almost been too much fun. That was all. School was supposed to be something like this to begin with. I should have disliked that feeling, but today it felt oddly refreshing. The bell rung, sounding the end of the momentous monotonous school day. They are two very different meanings, which have felt so tense and yet so dull. Since it would cause a lot of unpleasant memories if they asked me to join in to the club activities, I promptly started preparing to go home without even looking at them. I stuffed the contents of the desk into my bag, wrapped my hand around Satoshi's now familiar bat, and began heading toward the entrance. I was assailed by both the exhausting relief that nothing had happened today and the tiring possibility of the same thing repeating tomorrow. But deep down inside me, far beneath, in the recesses of my heart, achingly, I knew. This would be the last day of this cycle. I couldn't tell how the ending would be, whether it would be as I wished it to end, or if it would end as I hoped it wouldn't. Regardless, in my current state, there was something more important than how things would end. There was something else I wanted to know. Why did I have to be killed? How did it come to this? And why? For what purpose? The sunlight was relentless. The sun, the heat, even the air. They wouldn't give me my answers. Or could it be that the cries of the Higurashi were desperately trying to tell me something? Somewhere, mixed in with the shrieks, Tomitaki-san and Satoshi were probably trying to tell me something. I simply hadn't been able to realize it yet. When I do realize it, I wonder if I will be among the Higurashi fruitlessly crying to the next victim. Glancing at my feet, I saw a Higurashi on its back, spasming weakly. There was still much of the summer left, yet this one was already chirping its last song. I couldn't tell what it was saying, no matter how hard I listened. But I had to try. I had to try to listen to what it was desperately trying to tell me. At that moment, the shrills of the Higurashi ceased all at once. As if they had huddled together, fearing that the person who brought them to their dreadful fate had arrived. There was no mistaking it. A presence was approaching. The sound of footsteps was almost non-existent. If the Higurashi hadn't warned me by ending their chirping, I wouldn't have noticed. My exhaustion left me in a heartbeat. In its place was a rush of adrenaline that sharpened all of my senses. I was just barely able to hold back that creeping, suffocating feeling of horror. It wasn't something I could hold back for long. But in this moment, I needed to be razor sharp. I was able to retain my composure. I wasn't going to shout like I did yesterday. I hid myself calmly amongst the trees, waiting for my pursuer's shadow. Could I get them to pass by me? No, since I was able to hear their footsteps, they were probably also able to hear mine. I might have already been able to tell that I had hidden myself and was holding my breath. The person tailing me, was it Reina just like yesterday? If it was Reina, I wouldn't hold back. I could just yell at her and make her go ahead like yesterday. If it wasn't Reina? It would depend on how they acted, I guess. The footsteps ambled closer. I swallowed, wiped my clammy hands on my pants, and readjusted the grip on the bat. I could tell that the fear I had beaten back once was now waiting for another opening to come at me. Who could it be? I peeked out from behind the tree at the person following me. My imagination hadn't led me astray. It was Reina. There was a bit of relief as I realized it was someone I knew, but that feeling left me in an instant. This wasn't the same Reina that I knew. Her eyes were dark and lifeless, but her mouth appeared as if it were carved into a crescent. Yeah, it almost looked like she was grinning slightly. And in her right hand was an axe. Interesting shape of an axe, but I'll let it slide. I hid myself behind the tree once again and recalled the unbelievable sight I just saw. What was that just now? The embodiment of terror laid bare. Baseball, practicing my swing. There were tons of excuses for me to be carrying a bat. But for that axe? There was no excuse for that. An axe, just like that.
Keiichi-kun,
Keiichi-kun,
かくれんぼかな。
are you playing hide and seek, I wonder? My heart was pounding. Hard enough that I had trouble breathing. What little composure I'd been able to hold in was now crushed. In its place, cold sweat gushed forth, covering my entire body, letting me know precisely what kind of emotion had taken hold. Not good, not good, not good. I wasn't able to hide myself completely. She already knew I was here.
レナを驚かせようとした
Are
の
you
か
trying
な
to scare me, I wonder?
かな
I wonder?
I decided that it would be better to reveal myself now since there was no space between us than allow Reina to come any closer. I adjusted my grip on the bat again, readied myself mentally, and stepped out from behind the tree. You're a little too close, Reina. Back the fuck up.
ケイチ君
I found you, Keiichi-kun.
Reina was pleased that she found me, eliciting a mysterious giggle. Her mouth was smiling, but her eyes told me she was displeased by the fact that I had been hiding. Those eyes, they were just so empty. My legs began to quiver. Ugh, no good. In the pit of my stomach, some sort of vicious hot and cold substance began spreading around. If I allowed that, then the substance would slip into my bloodstream and undoubtedly freeze all the organs in my body. Not good, not good. I'll be devoured by Reina at this rate. Strike back. Don't lose. What is it? I blustered, hiding behind my bravado. But Reina didn't flinch one bit.
ケイチ君と同じ
Just the same as Keiichi-kun.
帰り道だ
I'm
よ
heading home.
じゃあその
And what about that axe?
じゃあケイチ君
And
の
what
その
about
バ
the
ットは
bat you're
何なのか
holding?
な
俺は
I'm practicing my swing.
じゃあレナは宝
And
探
I'm
し
treasure hunting.
Reina gave a flippant explanation as to why she had such a fearsome weapon.
宝探し
Treasure hunting?
ダム現場の宝の
At
山
the
に
treasure
ね
mountain at the
ま
dam
た
site.
新しい貝の
I
を
found a
見
new
つけ
cute
たの
thing.
だからね
So I
そ
need
れを
this to
発
dig
掘
it out.
するために必要なの
信じるかよ
How can I believe that? You say that, Keiichi. We did this. We actually did this earlier in the story, so...
信じないよね
You wouldn't believe it, would you?
Don't like that. Don't like that one bit. Reina's laugh was obviously very strange. I'd seen Reina's transformation many times before, but the one today was completely different. Like her mischievous tone and the shrewd glint in her eyes. It wasn't something that roundabout. I'm not sure what to say. It was just so obvious.
待ってよケイチ
Wait,
君
Keiichi-kun.
I'm gonna get too into that. I need to stop. Reina didn't stop walking, even as she let out that eerie laugh. Whenever Reina got too close to me, I would scurry away and turn back toward her. This cycle repeated over and over. No matter how you look at it, I was being chased by Reina and was trying to escape.
ついてくるなよ
Don't follow me!
それはできな
I
い冗
can't
談
do
だ
that.
レナのうち
My
に
house is this way after all.
The concerning thing is I think I do the female one better than I do the male laugh. And that concerns me. When I met with Reina on this road yesterday, she cowered and trembled as she followed my commands. But today was different. Reina didn't show a hint of trepidation. Actually, wasn't I the one who was cowering? If the way home for Reina and me were the same, that's fine. I just changed my route. That'd work out, wouldn't it? I turned onto a side street I'd never been down and knew little about. Reina saw me do that and followed me while laughing. Why? Why? Aren't you going home? You just go home down the street you normally do. Why would you follow me down this weird little side road? Those thoughts screamed into my head, eventually spilling out of my mouth.
どうしてついてくる
Why are you following me? The tone of my voice was already tinged with terror.
ケイチ君とお話し
Because
し
I want
た
to
いから
talk to Keiichi-kun.
ケイチ君も
Keiichi-kun
レ
wants
ナ
to
とお
talk to
話
Reina
ししたい
too,
んじゃ
doesn't
ない
he?
かな
Doesn't he?
かな
俺は
I don't want to talk about anything with you.
嘘だよね
That's a lie, isn't it?
相談したいこ
There's
と
something you want to ask me
きっと
about,
あるは
isn't
ずだよ
there?
ない
Not at all.
レナと話す
I have nothing to talk to you about.
嘘 嘘だよね
That's a lie, isn't it?
嘘じゃない
It's not a lie!
嘘だ
Raina's scream echoed, startling some nearby birds into flight. I don't like angry Raina. I hate it. Oh, like, grinning Raina, sad accusing Raina are bad enough. This one is the worst. I've just spat on myself at fear. I cringed in fear. The only other thing I could do was increase my pace.
お話ししようよ
Let's talk, Keiichi-kun.
お話
Talk.
お話
Why was I running down this unfamiliar and deserted street?
ケイチ君には悩んでる
Doesn't
ことがあるんじゃ
Keiichi-kun
ない
have
か
something
な
he's worried about?
ないよ
Nothing at all!
何も
I'm not worried about anything! Lies! Even though I was running, even though Reina was walking, why wasn't I getting any further away?
わかるよ
I know.
レナはわか
I
るよ
really do know.
怖いんだよね
You're scared, aren't you, Keiichi-kun?
怖くなんかない
I'm not scared!
何も
I'm not scared of anything!
嘘だ
She keeps screaming at me and I don't like it. Then that happens. My breathing grew heavy and it felt like my legs were giving out from beneath me. Reina wasn't even breaking a sweat.
レナだけは相談に乗ってあげら今度こそ乗って
This
あげ
time
ら
I'll
れる
listen.
I had no idea what she was talking about or exactly what exactly she wanted to do.
今度こそ相談に乗ってあ
This
げら
time
れ
I'll
る
listen.
サトシ君の
It'll
時
be
とは
different
違
from
う
the
も
time
の
with Satoshi-kun.
When she said Satoshi's name, I turned back for a moment. But even as I did that, Reina was still advancing. I couldn't afford to stop.
サトシ君も悩んでた
Satoshi-kun was worried too.
辛そうだった
It looked like he was having such a hard time.
でもレナは
But I didn't
相談に
listen.
乗ってあげられなかったとても
I
悲
was
しか
so
った
sad.
Where did this street connect to? All the twists and turns, ups and downs. It was hard to believe there was even remotely in the direction toward my house. My sense of direction had long since gone out the window.
サトシ君が転校しちゃった時
I
に
really regretted it when
本当に後悔したんだよ
Satoshi-kun transferred out.
レナが相談に乗
I
ってあ
thought
げ
if I
れ
had
ば
listened,
サトシ君は転
maybe
校せず
he
に
may
済
not
んだ
have
かもしれ
transferred
ないっ
out.
てすごく後
I
悔
really
した
regretted that.
The road led me deeper into the forest. Wasn't I getting further away from the village the more I ran? I lost more and more of my composure the more I thought about it. But despite the realization, my inner self was still disturbingly calm.
だからね
So you see, I vowed.
もしもサトシ君みた
I
いな
vowed that if there was someone struggling like Satoshi-kun did, I'd save
レ
them.
ナが助けてあげ
I
る
don't want to see them transfer out again.
もう人が転校するところは見た
Damn it! What does transfer even mean? I won't let you transfer me. I won't end up the same as Satoshi.
さあケイチ君
Come on,
レナに話し
Keiichi-kun,
て
talk to me.
レナはきっと
I'll be able to
ケイチ君を
understand
理解してあげられるよレナだけは
I'm
ケ
your
イチ君の
ally.
味方
I started wheezing, out of breath. My lungs were so hot that they felt like they were going to explode, and my heart was beating as hard as it possibly could. I should have practiced running instead of my swing. Couldn't even afford to scoff at that stupid thought.
悩みがなくなればきっとケイ
If
チ君も
Keiichi-kun
元
doesn't
通
have
り
anything to worry about, he'll go back to normal.
みんなとも仲良しに
Everyone will
戻
be
れ
back
て
to being
ま
friends
た
and we
楽し
can
く部
enjoy
活が
club
できるよ
activities again.
今度は一緒に組んで
Next time we'll team up and beat
見つけようね
Mii-chan.
Yeah, how much fun that'd be. Reina couldn't even imagine how much I'd wished I could go back, could have turned the clock back the past few days.
レナともきっと仲良しに
You
戻
could
れ
be
る
so
よ
nice to me again, too.
また一緒に宝探し
I want
に
to
行
go
きたい
searching
ね
for treasure again.
今度はお弁
This
当
time
も
I'll
作って
prepare
い
a
く
nice
よ
lunch.
なんなら今
Actually,
から宝探
We
し
could
で
just
もいい
go
よ
right now.
行こうよ
Let's go up
一緒
to
に
the
ダム
dam
現
site
場
together.
見つけたばかりの可愛い
I'll show you the cute thing I just found.
きっとケイチ君
I'm
も
sure you'd like
気に
it
入るよ
too.
My footsteps made pathetic flapping sounds as my legs wobbled and faltered. Hot on my heels, Raina's steps were sharply breaking twigs underfoot. I had to accept it. I was on the run, being chased by Raina. If she caught me, it was all over. I realized it instinctively. I couldn't even begin to think of what the end would entail. Just that if I was caught, it would be all over. That's all I knew. It didn't matter how it was going to end. I wouldn't let it end. Not without knowing anything, not yet. That momentary lapse was all it took. Of all the things that could have happened, my knees buckled underneath me as I crumbled towards the ground. I tried to stand frantically, urging my legs to respond. I used my bat as a makeshift cane to prop myself up, but Raina was already standing right in front of me. Compared to me, out of breath and utterly exhausted, Raina was so cool and composed that she could have froze the air around her. She wasn't breathing hard at all. Rather, I couldn't even sense if her heart was beating.
何が怖いのかな
You afraid of something, I wonder?
怯えるなんてケイチ君
It's not like you to tremble, Keiichi-kun.
Her expression almost looked affectionate. Those soulless eyes, that mask of affection. As she admonished me for trembling, Raina's hands deftly slipped over her head. The blur of arms as they moved made me feel like I was staring at the godliness of a thousand-armed Buddha. Then both her hands met above her head. The axe that she held came into focus. I stared up at it in disbelief. It was all I could do.
教えてくれ
Tell me,
サトシは
what happened to
どう
Satoshi?
なったんだよ
Raina stayed like that with the axe raised above her head and solemnly opened her mouth. It was as if she was experiencing a farewell to a friend she would never see again. That cruel scenario resided somewhere in her actions.
言ったよ
I told you.
サトシ君は転校したの
Toshi-kun transferred out.
その転校
Enough of this transfer crap!
鬼隠しって
It means demoned away, doesn't it?
そうだろ
Doesn't it?
もう教えて
You
く
can
れ
tell me now, can't you?
サトシを消した
Who made Satoshi disappear?
レナか
Was it you?
ミオンか
Mion?
それとも無駄
Or someone in the village?
答えろ
Answer me! I became frantic the more I screamed, but Raina did nothing to maintain the smile frozen on her face.
ケイチ君が何を言ってるか
I have no idea what
わからないな。
Keiichi-kun's talking about.
じゃあ分かるよ
Then I'll say it in a way so you do!
連続開始事件
Who is the perpetrator of this chain of mysterious deaths?
ケイチ君は勘違いしてるよ
You seem to be confused, Keiichi-kun.
Huh?
人間の犯人なんかいない
There is no human perpetrator.
すべてはお社様の
Everything
決
is
め
by
ることなの
Oyashiro-sama's will.
お社様のたたりなんて
Isn't Oyashiro-sama's curse just superstition?
レナは信じ
You believe in that too?
信じるとか信じないと
It's
か
not
じゃ
about
ない
believing or not.
お社様は
Oyashiro-sama exists. Period.
Raina's eyes were even more gelid. I was very confused as to why the screen turned a horrific shade of red for a moment. The ferocity of her stare was so intense, not allowing me to question anything.
お社様なんて
There's just no way that something like Oyashiro-sama could exist.
ケイチ君は信じないの
You don't believe
お社様
in Oyashiro-sama?
信じら
There's no way I could believe it!
そんなのい
There's
る
no way it could exist!
いるよ
It exists.
お社様
Oyashiro-sama exists.
ケイチ君だって
Keiichi-kun should have felt it personally.
そんなもの
I never felt something like that!
ケイチ君さ誰かに
Keiichi-kun,
謝られたこと
haven't you
ない
felt someone apologizing to you before?
それもずっと
Constantly on top of that.
All noise from the outside world disappeared. Only Raina's voice resounded, loud and terribly.
それはね、許してもらえるまで
Until you
ずっ
forgive
とつい
them,
てくるの。
they'll always be with you.
学校へも
At school,
お家へも
at home,
枕元へも。
at your bedside.
I couldn't understand what Raina was saying.
レナのところへも来たんだよ。
It came to me too.
お社様。
Ayashiro-sama did.
だからレナは転校して
That's why I transferred and came back to Hinamizawa.
I don't understand. I don't understand. What does transfer even mean? What was Raina saying?
圭一くんのところにも
Hasn't Ayashiro-sama come to you as well,
来
Keiichi-kun?
てるんじゃない？きっと相談に乗れるのは
I'm
私
probably
だけ。
the only one who you can confide in.
圭一くんを転校
I
なんか
won't
さ
let
せ
you
ないか
transfer
ら。
out, okay?
Raina's demented laughter clanged around inside my head. Was Raina saying Oyashiro-sama came to her as well? That's right. Last night I had heard everything about when I asked about Raina.
他言無用でお願いします。
Please keep this confidential.
また内容には
Also, part of this may be
一部
speculation.
含まれているかもしれません。全てが
Not all of it may
真
be
実では
true.
ないかもしれないということです。よろしいです
Are you
ね。
still interested? Oishi-san began speaking.
被害者も学校も告訴してい
Neither
ない
the victims nor the school filed a complaint, so there's no preliminary report.
つまり
Basically, the police hadn't
警察が
intervened in
入って
this
ない
matter.
わけですよ。ですから詳細
So
は
all these
鑑定士
details
が
are
一人
just
の
what I
み
heard from those involved,
つまり信憑
meaning
性
it's
が
not that
高くない
credible.
被害者って言いましたか？
You said there were victims?
レナはガラスを割った
Didn't
わけじ
Raina
ゃないんです
just break all the windows?
いえ男子生徒
No,
が三人
Raina
ほど
Ryugi would attack three
殴
boys
られています。金属バット
using a metal bat.
二人はあざで
Two of them
滑
made
り
it
ま
out with only bruises, but the other was injured so badly that one of his eyes was permanently damaged.
それって
Wouldn't that be considered assault?
警察は
Shouldn't the police have arrested her?
したどういうわけか
For whatever reason, the victim never pressed charges.
警察に届け出がない
There was no report for the police, so they were beaten with a bat and suffered significant injuries. Normally there would have been a criminal investigation, but why didn't they press charges?
被害者の男子生徒三人に
I tried asking the three male victims for their side of the story, but they were all reluctant.
こう言ってはなんですが
It's hard to say, but
怯え
they were all afraid,
彼女が転校して
even after she had transferred schools.
大石さん
Hoishi-san,
話を最初から整理し
could
て
you
話してく
summarize
れ
it
ますか？
starting from the beginning? Raina had hit people while she broke the windows? Or was it she started breaking windows after she got bored of hitting people? They sounded similar, but the meanings were drastically different.
某月某日
On an undisclosed date, Reina Ryugyu was conversing with three male
一
students,
緒にプール掃除
close friends of hers, near the pool storage shed.
その3人って
Who were those three?
個人名は
I can't reveal their names, but they were close to Reina Ryugyu, and it seemed they were a group of friends.
彼女はこう言って
She was the lone girl in their group. So it wasn't that strange that the four of them were together.
それでどうなったんです
So what just happened?
理由はわかりま
I
せん
don't know the reason why.
リュグレナは
She took the baseball team's bat that was in the pool storage shed and beat the three of them down one after the
三
other.
人を次々に殴り倒しました
What? There were no witnesses. This was an account pieced together by the information given at the time of the incident. One day, after school, Raina and three male students were at the pool storage shed talking together. They weren't seeking help, rather that they usually met up there. It appears it became a heated discussion. At that time, Raina underwent a change. The change was so abrupt that the three of them didn't comprehend what was happening. Then, taking the metal bat, she attacked her friends one after the other. Leaving her friends covered in blood with gashes on their heads, She made her way to the school building. Then, she broke the glass windows, one after the other. A few minutes later, a teacher appeared in the scene and subdued her.
レナに起こった変化って
What was this change Reina underwent?
3人の証言で一致するのは
What matches up in the statements from the three was a sudden change.
豹変したという点です。
The point was that there was a transformation.
表変
Transformation. I also could recall Reina's transformation. I'd seen that change many times before. It was so different from the usual Reina that I couldn't help but believe it was someone else who looked like Reina.
その表変っていうのは
That transformation they're talking about. Had it happened before?
いえ、そういうのは
No, there was nothing like it.
私も知
As
ら
far
ない
as I could find out in her medical history in the past, there was nothing like it.
追ってみましたが、
そのレナみたい
Does
に
that happen often, where people change suddenly like Reina did?
もちろんありま
Of
す。
course it does.
精神的な
There are plenty of psychological phenomena that could cause something like that.
ではレナには
Then you're saying there was a dormant element in Reina that caused the transformation?
断言はできません。
I can't say that for certain.
ですが、
But according to the statements of her friends, it's hard to believe she had such a side
と
to
ても
her.
彼女にそういう要素があるようには思えません。
Kind, caring, and adorable. Even before she transferred here, she was probably pretty popular in school like she was now. That girl transforming suddenly and assaulting them with a bat. Who could imagine such a thing? Nobody could have seen it coming. I myself sometimes believe that I was mistaken for thinking that Reina, even now.
そしてどうなったんですか
And what happened after that?
学校の正面が病院でしたの
There was a hospital right across from the school, so the three of them were carried in and quickly treated.
レナは
What about Reina?
警察は
What about the police?
どうして
Why wasn't there a criminal investigation?
警察は呼ばれなければ関与はできま
You
せん。
see, the police can't get involved unless they're called.
一人は後遺症を残すくらい大怪我
Even though one was badly injured with permanent damage?
どうして訴えないんです
Why didn't they file charges?
私もそこは引っかか
That's
りま
what
した。
caught my attention as well.
何かの圧力。
Either some threat or pressure that was placed on them.
もしくは脅迫があったのか。それとも
Or they had a reason they couldn't file charges even if they wanted
訴えられ
to.
ない理由があったのか。
もちろん大石さんのことですか
We're
ら
talking about you
調べた
after
んです
all.
よね
Of course you looked into it, didn't you?
ねえ、ま
Well, yeah.
あ。ですが、
But I told you at the beginning, didn't I?
被害者たちの
The victims were all very reluctant to talk.
触れたがらないというか、
They didn't want to touch on the matter. Or rather, they didn't want to be involved. Reluctant to talk. Didn't want to touch it. Didn't want to be involved. It resembled the villagers here in Oyashiro-sama's curse.
学校の先生とかからは
Did the teacher at the school tell you anything?
学校は聖域
A school is a hallowed ground.
隠蔽体質
You could say they tend to keep scandals under wraps.
私も捜査
I didn't
令
have
状
to. I didn't have a search warrant, so I had to tread lightly. You see.
じゃあ学校
Then
は
there was no comment from the school.
いえ、
No,
事件の存
they
在
denied the incident even happened.
ですが某日
It's just
間違いなく病院に
3 male students were carried in for blunt force trauma that day.
病院にその記録が残って
That's all there was in the hospital reports.
被害者は語らず
The victims didn't speak, and the school denied it even happened.
何もわからないじゃない
Then you don't know anything at all.
ね
Yeah,
その事件があった
I know nothing other than the incident itself had taken place.
被害者たちもこの事件
Victims
が
also
公になる
wished the
ことを
incident to be kept from the public.
私
So
と
if
相原さん
you and I both forget about it, my Barasan, that incident will probably fade
そ
away.
のまま闇に消えるでしょうな
For a brief period, we sat in the silence. At first glance, it looked like a simple assault case. But that was just the tip of the iceberg. The depths were obscured by roiling waves, sinking quietly into the void, as if it never existed to begin with.
その後学校を
After that, she was suspended by the school.
そしてその間
And during that time, she underwent psychiatric counseling.
その医者からは
Did you hear anything from the doctor? Again, they were very professional in regards to their ethics. Or at least very tight-lipped.
警察手帳を見せてもダメなん
Nothing
です
even
か
after you showed them your badge?
書面で申請
I
した
was told to get a warrant.
手帳自体
The
に
badge itself has no legally binding authority at all.
じゃあ大石さんは
Then,
どうやって
how did you know that Reina
レナが
confessed that it was Oishiro-sama who
告
did
白
it?
したことを知ったんですか
一部を聞いてた
It was a nurse I asked in that department.
この方は
She agreed to help me just from showing her my badge.
それでなんと
Then what did she say? Turns out that the nurse hadn't heard everything. Apparently all she remembered was what she overheard from the inside of the room.
看護師さんが言うにはその時の竜宮レナは
Nurse said at the time, Reina Ryugi was very calm and mild-mannered. It was more like she was confessing her sins at church than a counseling session. She spoke with her mother there for some of it, but partway through her mother was asked to leave, so it became a private counseling session between just the doctor and Reina for a while.
例のお社様の話は
The part with Oyashiro-sama, when did that pop up?
途中です
Partway through.
その名前を突
She
然
screamed the name suddenly.
だから看護
That
師さん
startled the nurse, and that's why she started listening in.
お社様です。
It was Oyashiro-sama! Reina suddenly shouted that. I had no idea what she said before that, so I had no idea what the meaning of it could have been. The doctor calmly and collectedly asked Reina to have a seat.
そのお社様というのは何ですか
What is this Oyashiro-sama you speak of? Gently, ever so gently. A fundamental part of counseling is to be a good, patient listener.
ひなみざわを捨てた人は必ずお
Whoever
社様に
abandons
追われるんです
Hinamizawa will be hunted down by Oishiro-sama.
そして
And
とうとう私
it's
の
finally gotten to me.
竜宮さんが今のお家に引っ
That's
越
the
され
town
る
you
前
lived
に
in
住ん
before
でい
you
た町
moved
ですね
here. Isn't that right, Ryugi-san?
私は引っ越したくなか
I
ったけ
didn't
ど
want to move,
お母
but
さんとお父さんの
because
都
of
合
my
で
mom and dad's circumstances, we had to. But
お
Oishiro-sama wouldn't allow it.
竜宮さんはきっとひなみ
Ryugi-san must have had lots of friends in Hinamizawa.
今でも懐かしいんじゃ
Even
な
now
い
you
ですか
must miss them dearly, don't you think?
帰りたい
I want to go back.
ひなみ沢に帰
Back
り
to
たい
Hinamizawa. No,
帰りたいんじゃない
it's not that I want to go back, it's that I have to go back.
本当はもっと早くに
I
帰
should
ら
have gone back much sooner.
でももうダ
But
メ
now it's too late.
お社様
Oishiro-sama's come.
お社様というのは
Oyashiro-sama is the name of a god in Hinamizawa, isn't that right?
誰でも知ってる
Everyone
ひなみ
knows.
沢の守り神様なんで
It's
す
Hinamizawa's guardian deity.
それでひなみ
If you
沢を
ever
見つけ
try
て出て行こうとする
abandoning Hinamizawa by leaving,
と罰を当てるんで
you'll
す
incur its wrath.
竜宮さんが引っ越しをされたのは
You'd moved quite a while ago, didn't you?
では
Then
今になってそ
it
の
was
神
just
様
now
が
that
や
your
って
god had
きた
arrived, is what you're saying?
ということですか
信じないでしょうけど
You might not believe me,
お社様
but
は
Oishiro-sama exists.
The nurse was then asked by another nurse to do something and left the room. That was all she remembered.
お社様がか
That was Oyashiro-sama's doing, right?
確かにひなみ
I do believe that there's some kind of superstition in Hinamizawa.
里を捨てて
And if you leave the village, you'll incur Oyashiro-sama's wrath.
この辺りは前原さんもすでに
You should be familiar with this part, my Bara-san. I knew very well what those scorned by the village incurred. To hinder the dam construction, they cursed the construction foreman to his death. And the following year, Satoko's parents, supporting and leading advocates for the dam, were cursed to their death. But this was the first time I've heard of the curse incurred by leaving the village.
初耳です
This is my first time hearing that.
村の外敵が
I can understand outside threats being cursed by the village, but why also villagers who leave?
普通出て行く者は
Normally, people who leave villages aren't supposed to be cursed, right? I know it's a bit strange to say it, but I could see it as a rule. I know it's a bit strange to say it, but I could see it as a rule that people who come in are the ones who would be cursed. Far from Jupiter, far from his thunder. Excuse me. Curses weren't something to chase after people that leave, were they? Oishiro-san pondered for a bit over on the other end of the receiver and then began speaking again. Well, I told you long ago when Hinamizawa was called Onigafushi, didn't I? I recalled hearing that. Long ago, Hinamizawa was feared and respected as the village of demons. The village at the foot of the mountains also worshipped the demons. So Onigafushi was hallowed ground that you could never enter. It came to be said that if you entered carelessly, you were cursed by Oyashiro-sama. Those who set foot in Onigafushi, in other words Hinamizawa, would be cursed. I could understand that. I know that. But for leaving to also be no good? That's... Also the demons, you see. They were being strictly watched by Oyashiro-sama, so they would not enter into our world. In other words, Oyashiro-sama probably restricted interaction between Onigafushi and the rest of the world. I see. Finally, I understood what sort of thing this Oyashiro-sama was. So basically, Oyashiro-sama is more like a warden than a protectorate deity, I guess. Trying to keep this place isolated from the rest of the world. I guess that's how it would seem. I'm sorry, I don't know very much myself. This is mostly what was passed on to me from my grandmother. I could understand it a bit better if it was like that. Those who came to Hinamizawa would be cursed, and those who tried to leave would also be cursed. So basically, Reina originally lived in Hinamizawa and moved away. She fulfilled the requirements for being cursed. So that means because Reina moved away against its wishes, she was cursed by Oyashiro-sama. Is that what it adds up to? In short, that seems to be what it points to, I guess. As a matter of fact, soon after they moved back into Hinamizawa after all. Those who'd abandoned Hinamizawa and left were cursed. But then, why only Reina? Shouldn't Reina's parents also have been guilty for the same transgression by moving away and having been cursed? Also, in this day and age in Japan, shouldn't there be a lot of people coming and going? If every single one of them was cursed, then that'd be insane. But in reality, it wasn't that big of a deal at all. At most, there would be one person dying and one disappearing on that day of the Watanagashi. I don't like saying at most, though. Well, anyways, there's a lot I still don't know. Even if it was Oyashiro-sama's curse, it doesn't explain Reina beating her classmates with a metal bat, or why the victims wouldn't press charges. I don't think the victims were carrying because they believed a terrible curse had befallen them, do you? Of course I didn't want to believe it. But more importantly, I just realized something else. There was another bizarre connection that Reina made between Oyashiro-sama's curse and metal bats. Satoshi fell victim to Oyashiro-sama's curse and went missing. I've recently learned that Satoshi had also become infuriated with the metal bat right before he disappeared, just like me. Then Reina as well. She was affected by Oyashiro-sama's curse. She confessed that much to the doctor. And the weapon which she had used at the time for that horrendous act was, again, a metal bat. And finally, me. I'd encountered various things that were inexplicable, and now I was holding onto a metal bat. I was shocked when I learned that Satoshi did the same thing. It couldn't be. Had the same thing happened to Reina? But there was one critical difference between her and Satoshi's case. That being, Satoshi went missing after falling victim to the curse, but Reina was still here. Both of them had fallen victim to Oyashiro-sama's curse, yet they were met with different endings. And finally, me. I couldn't call it a coincidence anymore. Reina, Satoshi, and finally me. Could it be that I was really under Oyashiro-sama's curse right now? No. More importantly than that, what should I do now? Satoshi had been demoned away, vanishing without a trace. Reina was fine. Fine? We all know that's a lie. Reina had undergone a change. I could only believe that there was something that wasn't Reina was residing within her. And here, right now, it was standing right before me.
レナ、教えてくれ。
Reina, please tell me,
俺はどうなるんだよ。
what will happen to me? Reina stood imposingly, not answering.
サトシは消えた。
Satoshi disappeared.
だけどレナは消え
But
た。
Reina didn't disappear.
じゃあ俺は
So what will happen to me?
どうなるんだよ。
You're not answering my questions, Reina! I had never heard such an unpleasant laugh before. It had become akin to the sound of her breathing. It was no longer a voice or an expression of feeling.
大丈夫だよ。
Don't worry.
レナが
I'll
助け
save
てあげ
you.
るから。
Reina took one step forward, holding the axe above her head.
さあ、
Now then.
One step closer. Reina's face spread out to fill my vision.
話して。
Speak.
One step closer. Reina's nose was clear enough to touch mine, and she was still pushing closer.
話したいことがあるんだよね。
There's something you want to
レ
say,
ナが
isn't
聞いてあ
there?
げる。
I'll listen.
助けてあげる
I'll
か
save you. Okay?
ら。話してね。
Speak, okay?
話してね。
Speak, okay?
I slumped down, landing squarely on my butt. It wasn't for some pathetic reason. It was all I could do to get as far away from Reina. I had the gut feeling that I couldn't let her laughter end. Because when that laughing ended... The moment I picked up on that feeling, my body moved by instinct. I sprang to my feet so fast that I couldn't... Oh, God! I couldn't believe it and pushed Reina away with both hands. Reina was as light as a feather. Thrown about by the unbalanced weight of the axe, she was sent backwards as if she'd been carried off by the wind. After confirming out the corner of my eye, I dashed off at full speed. I was the perfect picture of fleeing like a greased pig. Get away from Reina. Run. Survive. I couldn't think of anything other than this. While I was running, I remembered I'd been holding onto a bat the entire time. Such a worthless weapon. I couldn't believe I'd forgotten about this weapon at such an important time. I sped even further down the winding path. I didn't even feel myself gasping for breath or my legs getting heavy. My body understood it well. If I didn't run away from here, I wouldn't live. I could hear the laughter of the simulacrum of Reina coming from behind me. It rang through the trees and in my head, and slowly chiseled away at my sanity. The grove of the trees thinned out, and I feel that vision suddenly expanding. Where was this? For a moment I was bewildered by the scenery. I felt like I knew but couldn't quite remember. I quickly realized it was the dam site. The fact that I dashed madly at the end and ended up in a place like this gave me a bad feeling, like I was following someone's scripted plot. I had a good view of my surroundings, but I didn't see a soul here. This was a terrible spot for someone on the run, but there was no better place for an attacker. My heart was already on the verge of bursting. The muscles in my legs were screaming, but I didn't care. If I stopped here, then they might not even be able to scream for much longer. Even still, I glanced back, looking for an excuse to rest. Reina wasn't there. Instead, I saw two villagers walking around. I breathed a sigh of relief that it wasn't Reina, but a third party. Except the voice inside me rang the alarm once again. Villagers walking around weren't suspicious in and of themselves, but it bothered me. They both wore rough-looking clothes. Empty-handed. They definitely gave the impression they were just out for a walk. But at this time of day, 2 adults wandering around without a purpose? It was enough to raise questions. But more than anything else, those eyes. They weren't chit-chatting while walking. They were both silent, heading forward and looking in my direction. Was I at the end of my rope and had finally started imagining things? I should run away. I was probably the best choice. If they weren't involved, I'd lose them easily by running. If they were part of the group after me, they would come running after me. Either way, unless I hurried up, Reina would catch up with me. That's right, I was going to run. Deciding that, the moment I began to turn tail, both of them rushed toward me as if they knew exactly what I was thinking. Somewhere inside me, I jumped to the conclusion that Reina was the only thing I needed to be afraid of. I made the assumption that I didn't need to fear anything else. Right now, I realized just how blatantly wrong I was. Suddenly, the story Oishi-san told me about the demons all leaving the village to hunt prey floated through the back of my mind. I could tell they were both coming after me, even without turning around, because of their frenetic footsteps. It was frightening to be unable to shake Reina off as she slowly closed in on me, but this didn't even compare. Being pursued with such violent ferocity, this straightforward horror was unparalleled. One of the pursuer's arms grazed my shoulder. Now it wasn't just their frenzied footsteps, but also the distinct sound of their breathing that I could hear. No, I could practically feel them breathing on me. They were already right behind me. Calm down, Keiichi Maibara. Still running at full tilt, I felt the surrounding area go still. No, it felt like time itself had stopped. I turned my head back to that slightly frozen world, realizing how close my pursuers had gotten to me. I couldn't win against the legs of an adult. In less than the time it would take for me to blink twice, when this frozen time began moving again, they'd be right on top of me. On top of me? And then? Don't think about that, Keiichi. First, realize that you won't be able to shake them off like this. If the fact that you can't get away was a given, then you need to make a decision. Go with the right leg or go with the left? You just need to decide which one. Let's go with the left. The moment I decided that, the temporal singularity burst into pieces. Right. Left. I swung the bat in the wide arc with my right arm. Using the inertia, I stopped and suddenly spun.
No.
What? The two of them were clearly startled. Momentarily losing sight of me, both of their outstretched arms, ready to grab me, instead grasped at empty space. The man on my right, and I applauded him for being able to figure it out, spun around to the spot I shouldn't have been, and faced me in astonishment. But it was too late. I didn't even need to swing my bat. All I needed to do was extend my arms as I turned around. It was by no means a heavy blow, but it seemed like it had enough power behind it to knock him off his feet. But just knocking him down wasn't enough to scare him away. He got back up in no time. Both of them took a fighting stance and were ready to face me. This made me certain that they weren't just people out for a walk. They were clearly after me. It felt much easier than dealing with Reina. Just by not recognizing their faces, by not knowing them, it made things easier. I smiled wryly on the inside. What do you want with me? Next one is going right into your face, you bastard! It's fine if it was just a bluff. By barking out at them, I was able to fire myself up. They didn't respond. They spread out to either side of me with unbelievably calm expressions on their faces. One of them would grab onto my bat and the other would hold me down. Was that their plan? Taking on both of them at once would be impossible. Hot sweat poured from every pore in my body. Then I just had to settle it with the first move. I'd step in and strike the first one down. Narrowing the target down to the man on my right, who had already been knocked down before, I stepped in and swung with all my might. There was no way for an unarmed person to guard against it. It would cause immense damage. If they blocked it with their arm, their bone would snap like a twig. If they turned their back to it, it was possible that the blow would travel all the way to their vital organs. It looked like he was aware of this. He pushed further through the kill zone between us and delivered a fist right into my gut. Not good. With this distance, in this position and in this state, there was no way for me to dodge it. The world flipped upside down. I understood I was being tossed around like a rag doll. I landed on the soft earth without a sound, feeling the grainy soil press against my face. It didn't hurt at all. At the moment I thought that, I suddenly felt pain coming from the abrasions on my skin, as well as the content of my stomach being forced upward, flooding my mouth with a bitter sensation. I knew very well that I didn't have time to relish this experience. I stood up as quickly as I could, but at that moment the other man was already barreling toward me. Being able to comprehend that calmly, that I simply couldn't dodge it, made it all the more upsetting. After ploughing into my stomach full force once again, my assailant twisted around behind me and locked his thick arms around my neck. My throat felt like it was being crushed by his immense strength. I couldn't even contemplate that I was being strangled or that I was about to go unconscious. My vision simply darkened as a silent whining noise began to play deep inside my mind. It took everything I had to keep myself from blacking out. While this was happening, the other man was more than likely standing in front of me. I wasn't able to open my eyes, but I could feel that he was there. There was nothing I could do now. Unable to shake this arm off me, I couldn't run. I couldn't fight back. Dire straits. I couldn't even come up with a phrase that adequately described my situation.